Mrs. Callahan, if you could do the roll call, please.
Mrs. Weisberg, Ms. Bays, Ms. Brooks, Ms. Gilliar, Mr. Greenstein, Mr. Kerp.
Here.
Comments are limited to 30 minutes each time you get up to the mic, and we welcome some comments if anybody has something that they want to say. Please introduce yourself when you do get up, if you get up. Okay? Okay. Okay, there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Okay, I just want to welcome everybody here tonight. We seem to have a pretty small crowd. The weather, I guess, is raining pretty hard outside, so I think those of you who are here, I thank you for coming out in this weather. This will be our last meeting of 2019, and even though we actually go by school year, I want to thank my fellow board members. I want to thank Dr. Hines and the rest of the administration, the staff, and you, the community, for a great calendar year as we conclude 2019. There is a big piece of news that I would like to announce, and you'll be hearing this in various ways, shapes, and through social media and other avenues. But today, for the first time, we were able to... Oh, am I stealing your thunder?
You are, in fact, stealing my thunder.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I cede my time to Mr. Kerpen.
Well, thank you. That's so thoughtful of you. So what I believe Ms. Johnson was about to say is that today we podcasted the Budget and Facilities meeting, which means that we recorded it so that those who could not be in attendance can listen to the meeting in its entirety. And I was very excited about this. I was further excited by the speed with which Dr. Hines and our team put that podcast online, and frankly, the speed with which my own team purchased BOE podcast.com, where if you go right now, you can listen to the podcast from the meeting this afternoon, from the meeting this morning, and for the next 20 years, thank you, Deb, you can go to BOEpodcast.com and listen to podcasts all day of the committee meeting. So in all seriousness, this is a huge step forward in making our work more accessible to the community, and I commend Dr. Hines and team for helping to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Kerpen. I could not have said that better myself. I appreciate that. Next, we have our report from our superintendent.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to actually ask Dr. Shields to give us an enrollment report, please.
Good evening. The last enrollment report was calculated on December 4th, and we have 11 less students than we did last year. We are currently enrolled at 5,415 students.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Shields. My report will be rather brief. A lot of what I usually want to say is presented over the fireside chat. I think the number one thing I'd like for you to consider is the winter concerts that we have going on. If you haven't had the opportunity, please attend. Our students have been working extremely hard, and the music is absolutely beautiful. So please check our calendar if you are available and check out our winter concerts. The second is I had the wonderful opportunity to meet with the Chamber of Commerce this morning. Had a wonderful conversation. Gosh, I'd like to say with at least 45 to 50 members talking about our wonderful school district and what we're looking to do, and how excited we are, and how we want to collaborate more with our local businesses. So that was a great conversation. And the last thing I want to do is to clarify something that came to my attention that potentially, I think, didn't tell the whole story about a recent Patch article in regard to 25 families that were served. I know it highlighted Guggenheim, the elementary school, which is wonderful, very, very proud, but it came to my attention that it was certainly much more than Guggenheim, the school itself. So I have some data I'd like to share with you, which I think is important for the whole school community, because a lot of people worked very hard to serve a lot of our families within the community. So first, I'd like to thank all of the wonderful elementary counselors and everyone else who assisted in creating not only baskets, but collaborating and helping our families. So Daly Elementary School delivered 32 baskets, which is remarkable. Guggenheim, if you read the Patch article, 25 baskets for families. Manor Haven delivered 47 baskets, which is really, really amazing. Sousa at 29 baskets, and South Salem at 28 baskets. So in total, 161 baskets were delivered to our families, and I can't thank all of our counselors and everyone else who assisted in making that happen. You know, when it comes to some of the news stories that takes place that are captured by the news media, you know, sometimes it comes from our PR firm, sometimes it comes from our administrators, and sometimes, unfortunately, it doesn't tell a whole story as far as what's happening with the whole school community. And I just want to make that point of clarification. So not only that, and if I don't see you past tonight, I want to wish everyone a wonderful Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and all the other wonderful holidays that are attached to this great time of year, and of course, New Year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hines, and thank you for attending the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I think it's really important for the school district to work with the community and work with the commerce, with the commercial entities, and you know, keep that relationship, or actually grow that relationship, because it's we all know it's very important, and we so much appreciate that our town has the businesses that they do have, and shop local to the extent that you still have holiday shopping to do. I'm now going to make a motion for the approval of the November 12th, 2019 minutes and the November 26th, 2019 minutes. Do I have a second? Mr. Kirpin, all in favor? Okay, thank you. We now get to we have two discussion items tonight. The first one will be a discussion of foundation aid and what we have been doing with regard to increasing the foundation aid that we are getting as a school district. And I think Larry, Mr. Greenstein,
without getting too deep into the weeds. So on November 13th, Mrs. Bays, Dr. Hines, and I were invited to a roundtable discussion being held by the New York State Senate on the foundation aid formula, which is the method by which the state determines how much aid to give us, but it's sort of irrelevant because we get 50% of the aid that the formula says. Anyway, they wanted to know what problems there were with it. We were one of the few districts there that actually stuck to the question and didn't just bitch about not getting enough aid. We said, these are the problems with the formula. As a result of that, after the meeting, they came over to us, you know, to have a little follow-up. When the media called them, they were directed to us, and we then sent in a really comprehensive report for the hearing that they were having in New York City on December 3rd, which I believe will be posted online if anybody wants to read it. It's online, right? It's online. It's online already, and that will give you a lot more. But in essence, The factors that we were saying need adjustment were the factors that reflect our current condition. The poverty levels are from 20 years ago. There's all sorts of all sorts of the data is gotten from old sources and haven't been updated, so we're asking them to update that stuff. There is no, as you know, the tax cap does not allow for growth of population, so we want the foundation formula to take that into account. We'd like them to use median income instead of mean income to adjust for the outliers. And we'd like them to have some discussion on, waivers of some of the mandates, which is actually something that we think they're relatively amenable to. And that might be a way where we can go, where if we can say, we're doing this better than you want us to do it, we shouldn't have to do it your way, it's going to cost us more money, that they would say, okay, we agree with you. So, I mean, that's basically where we are, and I would encourage everybody to read the document. It was great. It was done by a really talented subcommittee of the Legislative Task Force, and we definitely want to thank them for their help. It's sort of a follow-up to that. Last week, I was at a roundtable with the Chancellor, and one of the things that I mentioned was mandates. And she had asked us, said, well, okay, send me a list of mandates that are affecting your students and costing you money that you could do without. So anyway, I would hope as a district we compile something and send it off to her. They're also in the process of searching for a new commissioner, and they asked everybody to send in what attributes and skills they think that the new commissioner should have. They expect to hire somebody by June the latest. They filled 95% of the senior positions in the agency of people who have left. The one position that's remaining, I believe, is the director of curriculum and the assistant to the commissioner, who they said the commissioner should get to pick. There's also discussion about security and about how other districts are dealing with it, and about arming guards and retirees and how much you can be paid and things like that. It's interesting that I mentioned at some point that we had 40 languages spoken in our district, and most of the other districts were like amazed that we had that, because we are not certainly on the higher end of the districts who were there. But it definitely got the Chancellor's attention. And, a lot of the things that we were mentioning were things that she was responding very positively to, unlike the last time I was there when John King was there, who every time I mentioned something would just sort of snarl. But anyway, so I'm confident that Chancellor Rosa is on the same side that we are, and that, she's looking to bring in somebody who will be more aligned with the philosophy that we have in this district, and certainly that Dr. Hines has. And the last thing I'd do is I would suggest that we try to invite her to see our district and see some of the great programs we have, maybe our E&L program, since that's one of the things where we might have a slight disagreement, in that she's pushing the Part 180 regs, and we don't think they're necessarily in the best interest of our kids.
I just want to add, with regards to the foundation aid, we are scheduling a forum that will be open to the community to further discuss the foundation aid formula and changes, and basically to educate us all on types of changes that we may or may not be able to do. That we have a tentative date of January 30th. It's tentative in that we've invited our legislators to come to this forum, and we are waiting to hear back from them on whether or not they can be there. But the Legislative Task Force will be working on an agenda and be working towards making sure that everybody knows about it. But I just wanted to add that Larry forgot to mention that we are having this forum, so please save the date and look for more information.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the work that you've been doing, and to the, well, I'm on the Legislative Task Force, so I don't want to thank myself, but I want to thank I want to thank everybody who's on it and the subcommittee that worked hard on various submissions as well. Well done, everybody. Keep it up. The second item, discussion item tonight, is the potential new mandate, and it's potential, I say, for mandatory HPV and flu immunizations for school-aged children. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hines for that, and then we'll have a discussion.
I apologize if I'm either too loud or too soft based on where I'm sitting. And not that I want to go back to foundation aid, but I will just for a second, and then I will move to something I think is extremely important. Not that foundation aid is not important. For those of you, because it's kind of interesting. If you hear about foundation aid or even state aid for that matter, it is somewhat complex, and for some maybe it is rather boring, but it's extremely important. And it's extremely important for two reasons. One is Port Washington, in everyone's estimation, does not get enough money. I mean, that is the reality. And I think it's important, we think it's important that the school community knows that we are advocating for more. And not only for more money, but the way that the monies come in. Not a big fan of Newsday, but if you do want to go back in time and look at November 13th, they have a pretty decent write-up about the roundtable that we were at, and it kind of really, I think, encapsulates that conversation. Just as important, as Emily said before, the letter that was crafted and drafted and is now on our website is extremely not only concise but rich with a lot of, I think, very important information for everyone in this school community to read. And not only is the letter there, it's 2 pages, but there are slides that are attached to it that I think is incredibly important for all of us to unpack and then dig deeper once January comes and this forum takes place. I think it shows 2 sides of the equation. We're talking about the expense of an education and then the monies or the revenue that we should have coming in. And I think it's important, again, that the school community knows that we are, or this board is certainly trying to balance that equation. Now, at a recent Caffeine with Mike, it was last week, it was brought to not only my attention but everyone in attendance that, as President Johnson just said, that there is potential legislation for mandatory HPV and flu shots for students. Now, Senator Kaplan actually generated a letter very recently about what her thoughts were about it and some of the misinformation that's out there. And one of the parents, maybe 2 of the parents who were at this Caffeine with Mike, talked about school districts that have generated letters saying this is not a good idea. And so I know there are more than a handful of school districts on Long Island. I'm sure there are more that I'm not aware of right now, but I know Shoreham, Wading River, Connecticut, Southampton, Massapequa, Lindenhurst, Three Village, East Islip, I believe Patchogue, Medford, and several school districts upstate that have actually generated letters, either from the Board of Education or from the superintendent, saying this is not a good idea, don't do it. And here we are. So this is opened up for a discussion if the board would like to have a discussion about this, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the board on whether we would like to write a letter of our own or on this issue?
I will start. Yeah. Did you want to go? Okay, I will start. I think, we did get the letter from Senator Kaplan today saying that she does not support it and she does not believe that this bill will get to the floor, and that it's been there for a very long time and that they basically get buried all the time. However, that being said, I think that if this board, if we're all on the same page, I think it would be great for us to be proactive and put a letter together saying that, you know, we support Senator Kaplan's belief, because she was clear in saying that she does not support the bill, that we support her belief, and that we hope that she continues to advocate on our children's behalf. I mean, I think it'd be a great idea for us to put something together, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree that, you know, Senator Kaplan knows what she's talking about when she says this bill isn't going anywhere and has been around for years. And, you know, I think what Emily says makes a lot of sense, but I'm also concerned that we waste any political capital on something that is in reality a non-issue, because the bill isn't going anywhere. So we have to sort of weigh the positive impact we'll have on supporting Senator Kaplan against the fact that we are, you know, if we start chiming in on everything, our voice gets diluted. If we're very targeted in what we chime in on, our voice is stronger. So just, I don't know the answer, but I just thought I'd throw out the, you know, sort of thought process.
Anybody else? Okay, Deb.
I think I just disconnected that one. So it concerns up again year to year to year, even though it doesn't go anywhere. And I've been following this since about 2009. It's come up with bipartisan support on and off since 2009, and it hasn't even gotten to committee, which is $10. But there, I think we're not soothsayers, and we don't know if this year is going to be the year that actually makes it out of committee. And I think that given the fact that the flu shot does not prevent anybody from getting the flu. You can, and it doesn't prevent against all strains. And I get the flu shot every year, and I still get the flu, and I'm still contagious, and I can still catch it from somebody else. It's not like measles that once you're vaccinated, you're not spreading it. And I think it's incumbent upon us as a school district to understand that there are some vaccinations that are communicable and can prevent. There are some illnesses that are communicable in a school setting that can be stopped, and some that can't. And the ones that can't necessarily be stopped should be the parent's choice. And I think that we shouldn't play Russian roulette with this. I think that we should go on record and say, this year we're taking a stand against this bill, and maybe it will not only die before it gets to committee, it just won't be brought up again. And it's in the future.
Yes, I am in favor of doing this. Rachel and I actually collaborated a little bit to give us a little bit of a head start on what a letter would look like from us. Aside from the stuff that my colleagues here have mentioned, you know, I also want to reiterate that these increasing mandates from the state on vaccinations are putting a strain on the district financially. They're causing us, and if they add more, it would certainly cause us to need to look to increase staffing and spend money on things that I don't think benefit the students of our district. So I think it's incumbent upon us to let our legislators know some of those reasons. As Deborah mentioned, vaccinating against diseases that are not transmittable in the school setting is not something that, you know, a business that I think a school district should start to get into. But aside from all of that, I think it's important for them to be aware of the amount of money, time, and effort this takes from our staff that could be better spent on focusing on education, because that is our mission. Focusing on the education of our students is our mission, and it takes away from that mission. So I do agree that something to that effect should come from us, just so that they're aware what the strains are for us when they look at things like this.
Yes, okay, Rachel.
So I'm in agreement with everything that Deborah and Beth said, so I'm not going to repeat it. But I would just add that I think that we received this letter from Senator Kaplan actually after we put it on the agenda for tonight to discuss it. So at that point, we didn't know where she stood. But knowing now that she is opposed to this legislation, I think there's still a benefit to us at least saying to her, this is great that we think that you don't support this legislation. We don't support it either, and we thank you for being opposed to it. because I think even good legislators, sometimes their stances on things can change, and it's good that she knows that she would be representing her constituents as we would want to be represented.
Seconds. If I could just add too, we're focusing on Senator Kaplan because she reached out to us, but there's also a bill in the Assembly, and there's also the chance for the governor to push things through. So it's important not to forget that just because Senator Kaplan has expressed that we also need to reach out to the other house of legislation and the governor as well.
Okay, and I'm just going to add that I don't really know if you can draw a parallel between removing the religious exemption last, I guess it was last May or June, but it seems, that just having done that, which was in my view, a completely different issue, but it's still on the subject of immunizations, and the fact that this conversation has come up again, and I think people are more sensitive to it because it's coming on the heels of removing the religious exemption. But it also makes me think that you can't really, we're not soothsayers, as Deb said, and I'm not that concerned in this instance that we're like not overburdening, but overextending ourselves with weighing in on too much legislation, because we really haven't done a lot of that historically, I don't think at all until recently. So I do think this is an instance where, because of what's been happening recently with the state and with the whole idea of immunizations, I think it's a prime time for us to weigh in on this, and I completely agree with what everybody else said regarding the inappropriateness of mandating these two immunizations to school-age children. I think I guess what we should do is just take a quick vote, and then if Rachel and Beth can draft up the letter. I don't even know if I don't think we need to wait to another meeting. We could just get that letter out, as far as I know. I think that's appropriate. Yeah. Okay, all in favor of writing a letter to our legislators expressing what we've just discussed here? In favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
I just have one question for Dr. Hines, in that some letters have come from boards of ed and some have come from both. Would you like this to come from both the superintendent and the board? I just wanted to be clear before we.
Okay, we are moving along. This might be a record, maybe not, we'll see. Okay, we're up to the committee reports. Okay, policy and personnel.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put the glasses that I refuse to wear. Okay, policy and personnel met on November 20th. We have been discussing up until now lots of policies with regard to meetings and public participation at meetings, board committees, standing committees, advisory committees, special meetings, so forth and so on. Some of the policies are on for first read tonight. Some are going to be discussed again in our January meeting, because our next meeting, which has been rescheduled from the original December 12th meeting, everybody should know about it by now, it's on the board. It has been rescheduled to December 19th, Thursday, December 19th at 9:15 in the morning, and we will be meeting at a different location as well, the Schreiber Guidance Conference Room, room 112. It's down the hall over here. We will be hearing from our website subcommittee that has been working to get some suggestions and ways in which we can enhance our website. We will get a review from them on where they stand. And then we are going to tackle part of the code of conduct, and specifically with regard to academic integrity and restorative justice. So it's going to be a good meeting. Please attend. Again, December 19th at 9:15 a.m., Schreiber Guidance Conference Room.
Thanks, Emily. Dave, Budget and Facilities.
Thank you, Nora. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Budget and Facilities Committee met this morning. The three items on the agenda were a continued discussion about how to pay for the needs with respect to our roofs, a zero-based budgeting pilot, and some revenue ideas. I'll just get into each just a bit, just to whet your appetite, so you will listen to the whole podcast. With respect to roof financing, we don't have an answer yet. We are going to address in January three options for financing our roofing needs. One would be a bond. One would be transfers to capital over several years. And the third would be a combination of some transfers to capital along with some revitalization efforts in order to fix some roofs at a lower cost. We're learning more about that latter option, and as I said, we'll discuss that and hopefully make a decision in January. With respect to zero-based budgeting, Dr. Hines and Ms. Callahan have graciously accepted Dr. Pernick's volunteer efforts to take a look at what his budget would be for this Schreiber School building, were he to build that budget from the ground up. And so I thank Dr. Pernick for volunteering that work, and we're going to take a look at that in January as well. And finally, with respect to revenue ideas, we dive deeper into the potential of using the Sands Point property that we own at 149 Middle Neck Road, 139 Middle Neck Road, for both an educational and revenue driving purpose. And actually, we formed a subcommittee to dive deeper into the potential use of that space. And if anyone is interested in serving on that subcommittee, please send me a note or come talk to me at the end of this meeting. D. Kerpen, Kerpen at portnet.org, and we will continue to make sure we get word out to the community, both about joining the subcommittee and also about your ideas for how we might develop that property. We've talked about lots of ideas ranging from an indoor pool to an equestrian center to a bowling alley to a special needs a school. And I'm sure there are dozens more great ideas from you guys. So I look forward to getting the community's input on that. And one more time, if you would like to hear the entire 79 minutes of that meeting, you can go to BOEpodcast.com, BOEpodcast.com to listen. Our next Budget and Finance meeting will be on Thursday morning at 8:30, January 9th. That's Thursday, January 9th at 8:30 a.m.
Thanks, Dave. Next, we will have a quick summary of what's been happening in the Safety and Substance Abuse Task Force. And oh, did I skip curriculum again? So sorry. I am rushing this meeting too much. Okay, please take your time and discuss curriculum.
So the curriculum committee met on November 18th. Dr. Westerfeld led us in a very informative discussion of different educational philosophies, including project-based learning, constructivist teaching, collaborations, and progressivism. I think it may have been the biggest tragedy of 2019 that it was right before we began podcasting. So we might have to ask her to do it over again at some point because it was really educational. If anybody would like a briefing on it, you're welcome to email me and I will sit and fill you in. We are meeting again on December 18th, and we will be talking about special education with Dr. Westerfeld again and Dr. Stephanie Allen, again in the annex at 9:30.
Thank you very much for that. Now, Safety and Substance Abuse Task Force.
very brief because they did not have a meeting this month or in the month of December. They had Stephen Hill and Dr. Dewey were two presentations that happened in the area of safety and substance abuse over the last month. Stephen Hill was a comprehensive program presented to all high school and middle school students. Dr. Dewey came with parent council and presented Stephen Hill presented on substance abuse to our students, at night to our parents. And I believe he actually came back yesterday and met again with students that wanted to have further discussion. Dr. Dewey gave his presentation again that he had done, I think last year, about addiction and what it does to the brain and actual brain chemical changes. So the next safety and substance abuse meeting is January 16th, 12:15 at the Kathy Mooney, formerly Daily Annex. I hope you'll all attend. It's an important committee for the community to get involved in.
Thank you. I'm going to just give a quick view on the diversity committee. We had a evening meeting scheduled, and I forget the date that it was supposed to be, but due to multiple other meetings being scheduled for that evening, we decided to cancel it. However, the good news is that the next meeting is this Friday at noon in the Kathy A. Mooney Annex in the conference room. And at that time, for this meeting, we are going to have our very own Dr. Waffa Westerfeld has agreed to come and talk about culturally responsive education and cultural sensitivity. I invite everybody, well, some of you here I know are actually on it. I recognize a couple of people from the committee, but I encourage everybody to come. It's it's very interesting, and it'll be particularly interesting next Friday. Thank you. Lastly, the legislative task force, if Emily would give a...
The legislative task force has been working on the hearings that we've attended on November 13th and the testimony that we submitted in writing on December 3rd with regards to foundation aid, and now we are now in the process of putting together more information or collecting, I guess, the next steps for our January 30th forum, so, which we've already just discussed, so, but that's what we've been on. The next meeting is the beginning of January, I believe, I can't remember now. January, hold on. See, these are not reading glasses, everybody, that I'm wearing. They're for far away. I can't see. I'm sorry, we do not have a meeting scheduled in January. See, I forget what I said. We did not schedule a meeting in January. Our next meeting is February 3rd. However, if we feel that once we get more information together with regards to our legislators, we may put together a special meeting in January. But at this point, we are working towards the January 30th forum, but we may have a meeting, we may not. Stay tuned.
Okay, I just want to add one thing on the subject. It's actually not diversity committee because it did not come out of the diversity committee. But yesterday at Schreiber, U.S. Congressman Tom Suozzi came to Schreiber and spoke with a group of, I didn't count, but I'd say there was probably about 85 ENL students present and administrators and some other staff members who were able to come. And he really gave a rousing presentation on the immigrant experience as he knows it. Now, he himself was born here, but his dad was born in Italy. And he spoke about the the experience of Italian Americans, and going through the different groups as each group came in, and how much difficulties and prejudices and obstacles that each group had to overcome. I think the students, most importantly, really enjoyed it. He was funny, he was engaging, and we had an interpreter and the kids who are more less, I don't know the expression, but less newer at speaking English, I should say. They were wearing headsets which were translating his speech into their language. And it was really excellent. I think it really made a nice impression on the kids and for all of us that were there. It was a really nice exercise. Okay, now we're going to get to the action items. I am going to move to approve items A1 through A1 through D5A, and then D7A through D12B. Do I have a second? Okay, Mrs. Weisberg. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And I want to take, though, a moment to thank some very, very generous donors this month or recently. I would like to thank the Peter and Jerry Dujana Family Foundation for a very generous donation to the Philip Dujana Memorial Scholarship at Schreiber. I'd also like to thank again, a very generous donation from the Manor Haven PTA for the dancing classrooms, which is a great program. Also, we're accepting, and I thank, a generous donation from Guggenheim's HSA, also to be applied to the dancing classroom program. And lastly, again, very generous donation from the Manor Haven PTA towards material and salary payments to fund the Breakout Incorporated program that's being held at that school. And I think there was one more, yes. Yes, we want to thank, again, Daily HSA, very generous gift for the new Daily After-School Art Club. Thank you to those HSAs and to the Dujana Foundation for your wonderful generosity. It really helps and makes a big difference to our students. Okay, we are up to item 11, board policy. Going to move to approve the following policies for adoption with the recommendation of the superintendent. Policy 2310, which is regarding regular meetings, and policy 2382, which regards broadcasting and recording of board meetings, okay? So this is, we're moving to adopt these two policies as they've been revised. Do I have a second? Mr. Kerpen, all in favor? Thank you. And second, now we're going to, I'm going to move to review the policies for first reading with, again, recommendation of Dr. Hines. And it's two policies, policy 2325 regarding emergency meetings and policy 2340 regarding notice of meetings. Do I have a second? Mrs. Weisberg, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Now we get to old business. Anybody have any old business? Okay, and we actually do have an item of new business, which is the Manor Haven Path. Now we have been discussing the Manor Haven Path. I'm going to hand it over, though, to Mrs. Callahan to brief us on that.
They would like to formalize
open to the community when the Manor Haven School wasn't in session, and it's a usable track. I mean, I don't know what the actual distance would be measured as, but I think the community would have access to that and enjoy that. Does anybody have any questions? Larry?
I mean, certainly it's a great thing for the students of Manor Haven, and Manor Haven's phys ed program, has gotten lots of accolades, and, they're certainly leaders in this, and have no problem with the kids. My problem, or my question is sort of an equity one. Are there equivalent activities that the other buildings have? Like, I know Daly has a blacktop, so people can use it, but, I wouldn't like to see a real difference between, well, gee, the kids at Manor Haven get to have something to reduce their stress, but the kids in the other schools don't, sort of. So I would just like to make sure that there is, equivalent ways for the kids to exercise and equivalent ways, even though they're not the same, for them to experience all the benefits that the Manor Haven students will be getting with this track.
Okay, Rachel.
Sorry. I'm really glad that Larry raised that point. I'm in complete support of us signing on and telling Manor Haven to go ahead. I wouldn't dream of second guessing either Dr. Cohen or the physical education program there, but I think Larry raises an interesting point on the inequities in the physical activity in the different elementary schools. And this is an issue that I have been pondering, and I think that in some way, in some form, in one of our committees, we should be taking a look at the differences in recess at the various elementary schools, and when they are inside and when they are outside, and if we are actually giving them the same physical outlet at all the elementary schools, or if the different policies are resulting in inequities there.
Does anybody want to comment on that or any other aspect of this?
Rachel brings up recess, and I believe that the policy committee will be discussing a recess and a potential recess policy adjustment or not, or just we're going to be reviewing recess. At some point, I don't remember when it is scheduled on the agenda, but we will be discussing it with regards to recess. I understand that, and I think we've all agreed that everybody should have an equal opportunity across all schools. I do too, though, want to say that Manor Haven is willing to fundraise. I would be very supportive of them doing that, and they have been doing a great job at that school with regards to their physical education department. Megara Reagan gets awards every 5 minutes, and I feel that we should be, supportive of that.
Emily, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that it is on the policy agenda overall, maybe in preparation for whichever date that is, and I can't remember either because the policy committee is reviewing about 1,000 policies this year. But maybe in preparation for that, we could just ask the administration for some information to inform our discussion on the different elementary schools, the indoor versus the outdoor, what's happening at Weber, when recess is being used as a punishment or not in the various elementary schools, so that we can have an informed discussion about what kind of policy we think we need to set and where.
Thank you. That's a good suggestion. We will definitely look into that. Somewhere, I think in my memory, it's like we're discussing it in March, I think, but I don't remember. But it's a good point. We will prepare and have that information.
How appropriate that the month that we're discussing it in is the only action verb that connotes physical activity.
What an astute observation.
And back to the topic at hand, I commend the Manor Haven PTA. What a wonderful opportunity, and in full support of this.
Okay, well, I don't know if we officially have to take a vote, but I would say that we do officially. No, we don't. You were shaking your head. I didn't know what the shake was. Okay. It seems like we are all in favor, not only in favor, but we applaud the Manor Haven HSA and the Manor Haven community for adding this great track or path to their, for their students. It sounds like it will get a lot of use, and I think the kids will really enjoy it. So thank you to the Manor Haven HSA and community. Now we get to the second opportunity for the community to be heard. Is there, there is a taker.
Good evening, Julie Epstein, co-president for Parents Council. In light of the conversation that was just had regarding the Manor Haven path, the one question I would ask is, what I heard from Mrs. Callahan was that Manor Haven was willing to fundraise. My question to them is, has anyone consulted with the Manor Haven PTA to see if they're willing to fundraise for this, considering we just fundraised for a playground last year? So I think that that should also be taken into account before agreeing to go forth, and if there are any plans and what we're talking about as far as the path is concerned.
If I could simply add, there certainly would be no movement forward until the board gave its authorization for that conversation to happen at the Manor Haven School. So I believe this was the first of many steps that will be taken in the process. And if not supported beyond this meeting, it will not happen. And that was clear with Dr. Cohen when we had that conversation.
Thank you. Any other comments from the community before we adjourn? Okay, I guess not. Our next meeting will be in 2020, if you can believe it, January 7th. Thank you for coming, and everybody, again, happy holidays, happy New Year, and